Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with part 3, The Garden of Eden, from Astrology and the Ductless Glands by Augusta Foss Heindel. Chapter 2, The Garden of Eden. Man's evolution and development up to the present time is divided into 5 periods or epochs by the Rosicrucian teachings. We have described his bodily development during the Polarian Epoch, and we will now make a study of it during the next period, the Hyperborean Epoch. In the former, man was mineral-like. In the latter, he developed a vital body and was plant-like. In the third period, the Lemurian Epoch, he developed a desired body and became animal-like. The earth had already become encrusted and hardened in some places, and the atmosphere was dense and fog-like. Man then lived in the densest vegetation to protect himself from the intense heat, while his body had grown to a giant-like size, long arms and hands, massive jaws, but no forehead, the top of his head being very close to where the eyebrows are today. The skull had partially formed, but was yet of a soft cartilaginous nature. Man was not yet able to walk upright. The blood, which had heretofore been cold, now received iron and developed red corpuscles, which in turn hardened the bodily structure, making it possible for man to walk upright. We have now reached the period of man's development recorded in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, where the Lord gave Adam an helpmate at the separation of the sexes. Heretofore, man was hermaphrodite, but now we have arrived at the time mentioned in the story in the Bible of Adam and Eve, when they were turned out of the Garden of Eden for their sins. The change in sex was not accomplished in a day, as some may read from the book of Genesis, but was accomplished slowly and by degrees. As the earth became more crystallized, man's evolution kept up with this change, and it became necessary that the ego draw within the body in order to control it. To accomplish this, it was necessary that the brain and larynx be added, and for this purpose, man was required to sacrifice 1/2 of his creative force. He then became an individualized thinking entity, a creator, and he was then able to begin his work with the minerals. Man at this time was unconscious of the change in sex, and was also unconscious of his outer surroundings, for his eyes had not yet been opened. Similar to the deep water fish or the mole, he had no need of these organs, for the atmosphere was too dense and foggy. However, after the earth was thrown off from the central sun, the light which had theretofore been from within came from without. Nature always supplies every need. Hence, man's eyes began slowly to develop, as the brain was growing by stages. Likewise, other organs which connected with the brain were built as man's development demanded. As the sexes separated in man outwardly expressed one of the sexes only, the pineal gland, which is the Polarian, Hyperborean, and the early part of the Lemurian epochs, protruded from the top of the head, now drew within the skull. There is another tiny organ within the brain of man, the pituitary body, which has had much to do with his development, both mentally and physically, and which is as important as the epiphysis, the pineal gland. The pituitary body, or hypothesis, is very necessary to man's life and development. It appears in the fetus in the 4th week. We may trace the development of man's body through all its stages from the very beginning up to that of its present wonderful mechanism in the life of the fetus. We first see it as a tiny speck of gelatinous matter attached to another speck of the opposite vibration. These are positive and negative. We follow the embryo through its development as it assumes the bag-like shape, which is its first attempt at form as described in the preceding chapter. The globular gelatinous form of the Polarian Epoch, this small embryonic sac, has within it all the potentialities of the present perfected body, with the 2 polarities. the positive and negative, the male and female, the pineal gland and the pituitary body. We follow this human embryo through its growth and changes, which, as in the case of prehistoric man, passes through the mineral-like stage, the plant stage, then the reptilian stage with its well-marked tail, which at the 9th week disappears. Following this is the animal stage with its dog-like face, with only a spot which later will become the eyes, ears, etc. At one stage of its development, the pineal gland protrudes through the bag-like sac, and then the little form passes through the stage of the hermaphrodite, as in the Hyperborean Epoch, when no distinction of sex is shown outwardly. And so we may follow the evolution of man's body by the changes in the prenatal growth of the child in its mother's womb. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.